October 17, 1957. The air in Allied Aerospace's metallurgy lab is thick with the scent of ozone and hot metal, a low, constant hum from the induction furnaces vibrating through the concrete floor. It is a cathedral of progress, a place where the future of flight is forged. Inside, Dr. Evelyn Reed stands before a small, sterile conference table, her posture radiating a quiet, unshakable confidence. Before her sits her department head, Dr. Arthur Vance, a man whose reputation was built on incremental improvements, not revolutionary leaps. On the table between them rests a small, unassuming ingot of metal. It doesn't look like much, but it is the culmination of 3 years of relentless work, of failed experiments, and of one brilliant, world-altering breakthrough. This is alloy X7. Evelyn clears her throat, her voice steady as she presents her findings. The data is irrefutable, laid out in meticulously organized charts and graphs. By introducing a precise 2.45% lithium content into an aluminum-copper matrix and subjecting it to a novel multi-stage heat treatment process she developed, she had achieved the impossible. The alloy was 10% less dense than the best aluminum alloys of the day, yet 15% stiffer and significantly more resistant to metal fatigue and corrosion. Her explanation is a masterclass in material science. She details the atomic structure, explaining how the lighter lithium atoms integrate into the aluminum lattice, reducing weight without compromising structural integrity. She describes the precipitation hardening process, where tiny, uniformly dispersed particles of an aluminum-lithium phase act like microscopic rebar, impeding dislocation movement and dramatically increasing the material's strength. Lightweight, incredibly strong, and corrosion-resistant, this wasn't just an improvement, it was a paradigm shift. It promised aircraft that could fly higher, faster, and farther on less fuel. It meant rockets that could carry heavier payloads into orbit, a critical advantage in the burgeoning space race against the Soviet Union, whose Sputnik satellite had shocked the world just 2 weeks prior. This alloy was the key to American aerospace dominance for the next half-century. She finishes her presentation, the silence in the room punctuated only by the distant hum of machinery. She awaits the professional validation, the collaborative excitement, the dawning recognition of what she has accomplished. Instead, Dr. Vance picks up the ingot, his expression a mixture of boredom and condescension. He turns it over in his hands, his thumb rubbing dismissively against its smooth, cool surface. He doesn't look at her data. He doesn't ask a single question about her methodology. He simply places the ingot back on the table with a soft thud and leans back in his chair, a faint, patronizing smile on his lips. "Dr. Reed," he begins, his tone dripping with paternalistic authority, "while your theoretical grasp is commendable for a woman, you lack a certain practical insight." He gestures vaguely toward the lab beyond the window. This is a world of stress and shear, of tangible forces. A woman's lack of practical engineering intuition renders this theoretical at best. An interesting academic exercise, perhaps, but not a viable industrial product. The dismissal is total, a clean, brutal amputation of her work from the world of serious science. It is not a critique of her data, it is a critique of her identity. He asks her to leave the ingot and her notebooks for his further review, a standard procedure that, in that moment, feels anything but standard. 6 months pass. Evelyn is reassigned to a project analyzing metal fatigue and landing gear struts. Solid, important, but uninspired work. The sting of Vance's dismissal has faded into a dull, persistent ache of frustration. Then, one morning in late April 1958, the corporate memo arrives on every desk. Allied Aerospace is proud to announce a revolutionary breakthrough, Vance alloy, a new wonder material set to redefine the industry. The press release hails Dr. Arthur Vance as a singular genius, a visionary who has single-handedly solved the weight versus strength paradox. The world applauds. Aviation magazines splash his face across their covers. The Department of Defense awards Allied Aerospace a lucrative multi-million-dollar contract. His patent, U.S. Patent 298765, is filed, securing his legacy and fortune. And Evelyn Reed's name? It has vanished. It is not in the press release, not in the patent, not in the internal reports. It is as if she never existed. Her meticulously dated lab notebooks, the very documents that contain the DNA of this multi-billion-dollar industry, the true origin story of Vance Alloy, are no longer in her possession. They are locked away, buried deep within the corporate machine, a secret hidden in plain sight. How does a truth so monumental, documented so precisely, simply get erased? Following that professionally devastating erasure, the shadow of Vance's patent loomed large over Allied Aerospace, cementing a corporate mythology of lone male genius for decades. The story of Vance Alloy became a case study taught in business schools, a testament to inspired leadership and bold innovation. But a lie, no matter how grand or widely accepted, is a fragile thing. The truth, as always, leaves a trail of paper, a breadcrumb path of ink and evidence waiting for a historian's eye. That trail leads us directly to the archival collection at the University of Pittsburgh, specifically to Box 34, Folder 2. This is where Evelyn Reed's estate donated her personal papers, and within this climate-controlled vault lies the smoking gun, her original 1957 lab notebooks. To hold them is to feel the weight of history. The cardboard covers are worn, the pages filled with her neat, precise cursive. Here, dated months before Vance's patent application, is the entire genesis of Alloy X7. Page after page reveals the painstaking process of discovery. We see the initial hypotheses, the complex thermodynamic calculations, the long list of failed compositions with notes in the margins. Too brittle, poor corrosion resistance, unstable at high temps. And then, on August 12, 1957, the breakthrough. The entry details the precise ratios: 96.2% aluminum, 1.3% copper, and the critical 2.45% lithium. It outlines the heat treatments: solution treatment at 550 degrees C, followed by a rapid water quench and an artificial aging process at 160 degrees C for 24 hours. The tensile strength tests, the fatigue cycle data, the microscopic grain structure diagrams, it is all there, a complete and unassailable record of invention. His patent used strikingly similar terminology and performance metrics, a document that reads less like an independent invention and more like a direct transcription of her work. He describes the unique intermetallic phase and the surprising ductility, phrases lifted almost verbatim from the summary report she had submitted to him that October day. This isn't inspiration, it is plagiarism, intellectual theft on an industrial scale. This act of erasure was not an isolated incident perpetrated by one unethical man. It was enabled and codified by the very institution they both worked for. The proof lies in another archived document, this one from Allied Aerospace's own internal records, Document 12B-7, a Human Resources Policy memo dated March 1, 1959. Its language is chillingly direct and unambiguous. It states, "To maintain clarity in patent filings and project leadership, female engineers and scientific staff are not to be assigned lead inventor roles on corporate patents. Their contributions should be noted internally for performance review purposes, but will be filed under the name of their male department head." This wasn't an unwritten rule or a subtle bias. It was official, written policy. The system wasn't just broken, it was designed to function this way. It was a machine built to channel the intellectual property of women into the hands of men, who were deemed the only credible public faces of scientific authority. Vance didn't just steal her work, he used a corporate crowbar provided by the company to pry it from her hands. The impact of this theft and the system that sanctioned it is staggering.
Alloy X7, rebranded as Vancelloy, did exactly what Evelyn predicted. It became the backbone of a new generation of aircraft. It was used in the fuselage of the B-70 Valkyrie supersonic bomber, in the structural ribs of the iconic 747 jumbo jet, and in the fuel tanks of the Saturn V rocket that would eventually take humanity to the moon. Every time a passenger boarded a plane, they were benefiting from her genius. The alloy made air travel safer, more efficient, and ultimately more affordable for the masses, contributing trillions of dollars to global commerce and fundamentally reshaping the modern world. All of it was built on a foundation of her stolen work. The question then becomes one of complicity. How could the Patent Office, which is supposed to verify originality, have missed this? Why didn't other scientists at Allied, who must have known of her research, speak up? How could an entire system, from the corporate boardroom to the scientific community, allow such a blatant injustice to stand unchallenged for so long?
The answer to how such an injustice could stand for so long lay buried, not in a library, but in a forgotten box in a dusty corporate archive, destined for the incinerator. For decades, the official history remained unchallenged. Then, in 2003, a young summer intern named Sarah Jenkins, tasked with the mind-numbing job of sorting decommissioned project files from the 1950s, stumbled upon a folder labeled X-7 Project E.Read Preliminary Data. Her curiosity piqued by the unfamiliar name, she opened it. Inside were not just Evelyn's original notebooks, which Vance had clearly hidden away after his patent was secured, but also a series of internal memos documenting her repeated, polite, and professionally worded requests for attribution, each one denied or ignored by management. Sarah, a chemical engineering student herself, recognized the significance of what she was holding. This wasn't just an old file, it was a crime scene. She discreetly made copies, and her discovery sparked an investigative fire that would finally bring Evelyn Reed's story into the light. The copied notebooks eventually made their way to Dr. Alastair Finch, a professor of material science at Carnegie Mellon University. Intrigued, he and his graduate students undertook a formal academic review. Using modern techniques Evelyn could have only dreamed of, scanning electron microscopy, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, and computational modeling, they recreated Alloy X7 based purely on her 1957 notes. The results, published in the prestigious, were a stunning vindication. The alloy performed exactly as she had documented. The paper, titled A Historical Reevaluation of Early Aluminum-Lithium Alloys, unequivocally confirmed the originality and precedence of Reed's work. The Reed family, armed with this new, unimpeachable evidence, attempted legal action against the modern iteration of Allied Aerospace. They were met with a cold, legalistic wall. The lawyers for the corporation didn't dispute the evidence, they didn't have to. They simply pointed to the statute of limitations for intellectual property theft, which had expired decades earlier. Proving Vance's specific intent to defraud was legally impossible so many years after his death. The system that had enabled the theft in the first place now provided the perfect legal shield to prevent any modern accountability. While Vance's name remains, by law, on the patent, the historical record has begun its slow, deliberate correction. Evelyn Reed's story is now taught in engineering ethics courses at universities like MIT and Stanford. It serves as a stark, cautionary tale of systemic bias, institutional failure, and the devastating human cost of stolen legacies. The narrative of the lone male genius is being replaced by a more complex and more honest story of a brilliant woman whose contributions were deliberately suppressed. The injustice is no longer a secret. But the final question lingers, and it is a chilling one. This isn't just about restoring credit to one person. It's about the incalculable loss to humanity.
How many other Evelyn Reeds were there? How many world-changing cures, technologies, and ideas were dismissed, stolen, or left to wither in a drawer because prejudice, not merit, dictated who was allowed to invent and who was not? Her genius, though its recognition was delayed by half a century, serves as a powerful reminder that the fight for equity in science is not a niche issue. It is, and always has been, a fight for the future of human progress itself.